Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Shosef, and in today's video, I'm gonna be sharing my thoughts and experiences about being half Japanese, half Chinese, and Kikokushijo, which is a Japanese word for someone who's spent some time outside Japan as a child and came back to the US. It came back to Japan. To explain a little bit more about Kikokushijo, it's like this, some established identity that Japanese people recognize, apart from this like regular majority Japanese identity was born in Japan and spend their entire life in Japan. Like when I say I lived some time in the US, other Japanese would say, "Oh, so you're Kikokushijo." And it's more like this external identity, because I don't really have Kikokushijo as a big part of my identity. So let us get started, shall we? So my mom is Japanese. She's from Tokyo, and my dad is Chinese from northern China, the Inner Mongolian district. They met in Beijing while my mom was studying Chinese. So she wanted to be a Chinese interpreter, and my dad was he was working as a theater dancer in Beijing, and he was already curious about Japan because of all the 80s booming economy and technology of Japan. And one day he heard from his friend that there are some Japanese students in the local language school, so he was like, "Oh yeah, I want to meet some Japanese." So he went to the school, then he met my mom, and they got married right away while they were still in China. And then they came back to Japan in the early 90s, and then I was born. I have two sisters, older sister, younger sister. But growing up, they never taught me Chinese, so I don't speak any Chinese. Now fast forward, after middle school in Japan, I went to the US. It was initially my parents' idea, so I had to think about it a little bit. Then I was looking at this cloud one day, and I was like, should I go to the US or rather stay in Japan? But I was like, maybe I could live like a cloud. Let the wind decide where to go, and everything turns out to be okay. That was the kind of the mindset. That's how I decided to go to the US. But anyways, I spent 8 years in the US, high school in Florida, and college in Indiana, and then grad school in Michigan. But then in 2020, I came back to Japan. That was right in the middle of COVID. And I was still in my master's degree. So the master's degree was 2 years, and then during the first year, the pandemic happened. So for the second year, I have to come back to Japan and take all the classes online, which was pretty bad because of the time difference. I would have classes at 2 a.m. and then 6 a.m. after that. So that was very stressful, and I was pretty depressed, and I gained like 20 pounds, 10 kilo. And I had never gained any weight before that, so that was an extreme time for sure. But that crazy time is over now. Now I'm working as a translator, freelance translator in Japan. My job is to turn walls into bridges between cultures, especially Japan and the US. Yeah, in my college time and grad school, I majored in Japanese studies. Some people get kind of confused hearing that, because I'm Japanese, and why not just stay in Japan and study about Japan in Japan? But it was more like this, anthropological stuff. So actually looking at my own culture through outsider's perspective was very interesting, and it helped me realize different stuff that I would not see staying in Japan. So there's a Japanese saying which is Todai Motokurashi, or it's dark underneath the lighthouse, meaning that you tend to dismiss something that is close to you, or things that you grew up with. So having myself distant from my own culture allowed me to see things that I wouldn't have been able to staying in Japan. So it makes sense to see myself through different perspectives. And my name, well, the name that my parents gave me is Shohei, which is same as Otani, and even the kanji is the same. So in Japan, it's easy for me to introduce myself because I just say I'm Shohei, same as Otani. Good first impression, because every Japanese loves Otani because his face is literally everywhere around Japan right now. But when I was in the US, a lot of people struggled whenever I said my name. But like, come on, it's just Sho and Hey. How simple is that? But some people just gave up and they just called me Sean. They're like, oh, okay, you're Sean from now. I'm like, okay, I guess that's close enough. And actually, my Chinese relatives call me Xiao Hai, which is written like this, because it sounds closer to my Japanese name. This kanji in Chinese is Xiangping or something like that. I'm sure I'm not getting the tone right, but something like that. It doesn't sound like my name. Basically, they gave me a Chinese nickname, which is pretty nice. It means little sea. And then regarding Shosef, which is my alias, it's my college nickname. My college friends called me Shosef Wet Knees because one night we were just drinking and I drank too much. I passed out and collapsed, and my knees got into the gutters filled with water. My knees were wet. And the next day they were like, here comes Shosef Wet Knees. So it was a good time. And I would say things like this that I experienced in my college time really helped me to get used to American culture. Like, there was one moment where I was in a pizzeria around midnight and having this beer, IPA, and I was like, oh, wow, I really love this. Because first few years, I didn't like the greasy American pizza, but towards the end of my college time, I was loving it with this big slice of pizza with nice flip. Pizza and beer selection are some things that I miss about the US, because in Japan, like 90% of beer is draft, which is really like thin and watery. Like, if you go to kombini in Japan, you see these different selections of beer, but they taste pretty much the same to me. And diner is another thing that I miss, with all the nostalgic aesthetics, with unlimited refills of coffee. But anyways, I digressed a little bit. So in Japan, I will be called hafu, or half Japanese or half something else. But honestly, I don't really like this word because it makes me feel like I'm incomplete. I'm half a Japanese, half something else. But I don't particularly look half or mixed. So I don't know. Japanese people like to label people. But I guess it's a universal thing, I guess. But especially in Japan, when it comes to like topics like race and culture, it's a little bit different in Japan, and I guess people don't really know how to address these things, and it might come off as a little bit strange. Like, there's a word as opposed to hafu, which is Junjapa, or Jun Japanese, or pure Japanese, which means that your parents are both Japanese, but like talking about purity of race or your identity, it's a little bit problematic, isn't it? But I guess Japanese people are just curious about different cultures and different races, but they just don't know how to address that, like I said, so it comes out weirdly and sometimes even offensive. And growing up as half Chinese in Japan, communication is one of the big things that I felt. My dad, who's Chinese, likes more direct communication, while my Japanese mom uses more indirect expressions. Like when she's not sure about stuff or wants to say no, she would say, ちょっとどうかな like, instead of saying no clearly. And then hearing these things, my dad get confused or frustrated. And another thing is food. That's a big thing. Of course, Japan and China have a lot in common historically and culturally, but they're still two distinct cultures. My family often goes to Chinese restaurants, like real Chinese restaurant run by Chinese people for Chinese people. So it uses a lot of spice and they're like particular way of cooking stuff, while more Japanese adapted version is more like milder and often sweet, because they use a lot of mirin, which is a type of cooking sake, cooking alcohol. So it has very different taste and also way of cooking. And when it comes to Chinese food, I'm more used to and I prefer real Chinese taste. So a lot of spice and stuff. So when I go to Chinese restaurants with my Japanese friends, we go to Japanese adapted Chinese restaurants, and they were like, this Chinese food is really good. And of course, I wouldn't say, well, this is not really Chinese, because they will be like, of course, you're smart pants. So I'm like, yeah, it's Chinese food is very good. But in my mind, I'm like, it's not even a Chinese food. But anyways, that's how you maintain your friendship. Just being nice, agreeable. But yeah, these subtle things make me realize that I'm operating in different cultural systems, different cultural OS, so to speak. But I would say I'm more familiar with American culture rather than Chinese, because I actually lived in the US, while I've only visited China like a few times. And like coming back to Japan, there was a lot of reverse culture shocks in Japan that I kind of struggled to adapt myself to. Biggest challenge was, again, communication style. Like in the US, I learned to be direct and ask questions and speak up whenever I have to. And that's how you show your respect and you're engaged, right? But in Japan, that's kind of the opposite. You're supposed to go like, そうなんだ、なるほどね、確かにそれ、like, giving these social cues constantly, like nodding and stuff like that. And it's actually called aizuchi, or phatic expression. That's the linguistic term, which is this social thing. Instead of actually exchanging information, aizuchi is more for social bonding, like, signs or acknowledgement that you are listening and you care about the topic. But in Japan, it goes to the point where you're not really actually understanding, but you're only giving this signs of acknowledgement. It's like more than understanding, giving this aizuchi matters more. But when I just came back to Japan, I was forgetting about this, and some people thought I was being rude or not listening. Like my Japanese friends, they would stop talking. They're not mad or anything. They were just waiting for me to say something like, "Hey, それでどうしたの?" And then they continue talking. And another reverse culture shock was work culture, walking so much. Instead of walking to live, they're living to walk. Walk becomes a big part of their life, part of their identity. It's like Japanese walking attitude is more like walking harder, not smarter. It's the opposite of efficiency. So showing more efforts, like, see, I'm like, これがちょっとわかんなくて、ここがですね、ここがわかんない、like, this kind of thing. You have to show that you are making effort, and making actual result seems like it's a secondary thing. So it's this kind of a gambaru mindset. It's like you have to show that you are gambatteru. It's the process that matters. Well, that's why I'm freelancing now. There's no way I have to pack myself into a train every morning and, walk until 9 p.m. Well, now let me share a little bit of reflections about multicultural identity. I've spent years figuring out how to live between different cultures, and it's confusing, right? But I think having that kind of multicultural background is actually a strength. I don't necessarily have to pick one side. That's what I figured. Like my red and gold Chinese heritage and American directness and Japanese read the room kind of style. They're all part of myself. These cultural bits create my whole identity. These pieces create my wholeness. And they don't compete, rather they complete. Well said. And this diversity is my strength. And to give you a little bit of further thoughts, I think having multicultural background is actually more valuable than ever in today's ever globalizing world, right? For example, Japanese society is aging. There are more and more old people while birth rate is declining. And that means that Japan's internal economy is shrinking. And that is why some Japanese companies are hiring international people, international talents, and also expanding into overseas economies. Like for example, in Southeast Asia, population is growing, and that means that economy is also growing. So there are some manga publishers. They're building this AI and they're trying to export more contents to these economies. And I think this is where people like us come in, right? Who are familiar with different cultures. We are needed more than ever to navigate between different cultures. We build the bridge between different cultures. So if you ever felt cultural gap, I know it can be a tough experience, right? Feeling not fitting in or not being understood. That's very isolating. But I just want to tell you that the world is actually much, much bigger than you expect. In fact, it's just this tiny portion of this bigger world. So instead of covering up, embracing your differences gives you a perspective and the power that not many people have. Well, thank you for listening. Now I'm curious to hear your experiences and thoughts, so please share them in the comment below. And I hope to see you in the next video. Until then, keep surviving and thriving. Bye.